Good evening and welcome to the March 20, 2024 regular meeting of the Holland City Council. I'm Mayor Nathan Box and I'm calling this meeting to order. Matt, would you please call the roll?
Yes. Byrd.
Present.
Vreeman. Raymond.
Yes, here.
Corbin. Soul.
Here.
Rowan.
Present.
Shea.
Here.
Schulteis.
Present.
And Mayor Box.
Present.
You have a quorum.
Great, thank you. We're going to begin this evening's meeting as we have for many years, first with an opening prayer this evening by City Manager Keith Van Beek, followed immediately by the Pledge of Allegiance, and we would invite you to join us if you're so inclined.
Would you please join me? Lord, we come to you this evening with thanks in our heart. We thank you for this community that we serve, that we're able to live in, that we're able to participate in community with. We ask as we do the business of the city this evening that we remember each of those things as we place the work of the city before any interests of our own, and as we honor our citizens in good deliberations and good thought and good process. We ask for your protection on our citizens, our staff that serve it, and for your blessings on the work of this evening. In your name we pray, amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Mr. Van Beek. Next item on our agenda are our consent agenda items. These are items that are considered to be fairly routine, and they have been previously reviewed by council and will be enacted in one motion unless a member of the audience or a member of council asks to have an item removed from the consent agenda, and then it will be placed on its regular order in the regular agenda. But before I do that, and actually before I do the next thing, please note for the record, Mr. Van Dyken, that Mr. Corbin joined us at, looks like 7:02. 6:02. Boy, that first hour went fast, didn't it? 6:02. Still working on that daylight savings time thing. Matt, would you please review the consent agenda for us?
Yes. Absence excused. Item 4A, absence excused for Councilmember Vreeman. 4B, approval of minutes, March 6, 2024 regular meeting. 4C, oaths of office. 4D, from the Board of Public Works, water treatment plant high service pump number 2 repairs. 4E, from the Board of Public Works, notice of intent to sell water utility bonds. 4F, from the clerk, claim filed against the city. 4G, from Transportation Services, award bid for 16th Street Improvement Project. 4H, from Transportation Services, approve agreement with Kendall Property Group for their participation in the 16th Street Improvement Project. 4I, from Finance, January financial reports. 4J, from Finance, declare items as surplus, police operations, property, and evidence room. 4K, from Finance, amend to fee schedule to allow payment by credit card for Department of Transportation specific payments. 4L, from Management Administrative Services, award bid for workout room equipment for the Waverly Road Fire Station. 4M, from Management Administrative Services, Human Resources, amendments to Mission Square 457 Government Deferred Compensation Agreement Plan. And lastly, 4N, from Management and Administrative Services, Human Resources, Employee Service Credit Purchase, MERS Defined Benefit Pension Plan.
Great, thank you, Matt. Is there any member of the audience that would like to have an item removed from the consent agenda and placed in the regular agenda? Seeing none. Any member of council that would like to have an item removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda? Seeing none there either. What is the pleasure of council in regard to the consent agenda?
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Sol. Is there support?
Second.
Shay?
Shay.
Thanks, Devin. Any discussion? Matt, would you please call the roll?
Byrd.
Yes.
Raymond.
Yes.
Corbin. Yes. Soul.
Yes.
Rowan.
Yes.
Shea.
Yes.
Schulteis.
Yes.
Mayor Box.
Yes.
That passes.
Great, thank you. Next item on the agenda is public comment. Under the Open Meetings Act of the State of Michigan, we provide the opportunity for the public to address council and all of our boards, committees, and commissions at our meetings. This is one-way communication. It's an opportunity for you to speak to us about those items that you may think are important. We do not engage in discussion or answer direct questions at this time, but if there is a question that arises, staff may be able to circle back and be able to answer that question for you in the future. We do limit the amount of time that you have to speak. Each person may speak once and for 5 minutes. There are 3 lights on the dais in front of me. There is a red light, a yellow light, and a green light. Green light means you're doing well on time. Yellow light means that you have 1 minute left, and the red light means that your time has expired, and we are strict about that. We please ask that you come forward to the podium and please state your name and municipality for the record. Having said that, is there anyone here who would like to address council at this time? If so, please come forward. And I know that you're one of our HIAC students. We love having you guys here. But we do have a couple of additional requirements for you folks. And that is we'd love to know, obviously, your name, what school you go to, what you're doing with HIAC, and if you have any plans for the future. And if you don't, that's okay, because I didn't have any at your age either.
My name is Timothy Vandermeer. I'm on the environmental committee. I go to Zeeland West High School, and I plan on going to college after high school. I don't really know where yet. Voter turnout over the last couple of election cycles, although higher than the nationwide norm, is still not at a place where I personally think it should be. In order for this country to operate as a functional democracy, political views right now are at an all-time high in polarization, and we need more people to vote in order for the democracy to function. Hundreds of thousands of voters in Michigan every year don't vote. That's a problem. If we can't get them to vote, we can't get issues to pass. We can't draw attention to local and federal issues that need to be changed and looked over. Obviously, right now there's a lot of division on a lot of important issues, namely the Roe v. Wade overturning, presidential elections, things like that. I think the city, although they do a lot to encourage voting and to support voters, more could be done to encourage it and finish it and make sure everyone gets their say.
Great, thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address council at this time? And same rules apply to you. We'd love to your name, what school you go to, what you're doing with HIAC, and if you have any plans for the future.
So my name is Owen Steimer. I go to Black River Public School. I'm also on the environmental committee for HIAC, and I plan to go to college after high school. Not exactly sure where.
Great.
So today I've come up here to propose the idea that Holland should have more composting and recycling bins in public areas. I do not see any of these types of bins, or not many of these types of bins, when I'm out in public in the city of Holland, and this should not be the case. When I travel to other cities around Michigan, and even outside of Michigan, I tend to see recycling and composting bins placed near regular garbage bins. People should have the option to recycle or compost their waste instead of throwing it away for the sake of our environment. I would love to see Holland develop into more of an environmentally friendly city, and this would certainly be a good thing to implement in an effort to work towards that.
Great, thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address council at this time? And would you please state your name and municipality for the record? You don't need to tell us what school you go to or.
Okay, good. It's been a while, I probably forgot. So, my name is Doug Zylstra, 152 East 24th Street. I am the county commissioner for the city of Holland to the Ottawa County Board. Mr. Mayor and council, just want to stop by and give a quick update. It's been a bit since I've been here, so, and we have been doing some things. So, number one, probably the most positive thing, the board has resolved the issue of the Health Director Hambly positively. All proceedings dropped between the board and Director Hambly and the Health Director again against the board. I was pleased that we can get this matter settled. However, it does not mean that differences in approach between the board and the Health Director have been solved. as there does seem to be strong tensions remaining between the board majority and the health director and the health department overall. It is my hope we can gradually resolve some of those differences so that we can make sure we once again have a strong cooperative relationship with the health department for the benefit of Ottawa residents. A couple weeks ago, the board terminated former administrator John Gibbs based on a series of allegations against him. I did think that a number of the allegations were indeed serious. However, the board did not spend any time investigating those charges. As a result, I voted no on the termination, as I felt that we did not accord Mr. Gibbs his due process. With Mr. Gibbs' termination, our strategic planning for the year does seem to be up in the air. We had planned to gather data and convene late spring, but as of now, that timeline is not confirmed, and I think very much in jeopardy. I hope we can get back on track with this effort for the sake of Ottawa County residents, as it's been nearly 2 years since we've undergone any strategic planning efforts. Also, in light of Mr. Gibbs' termination, the board has voted to hire John Anderson as interim county administrator. Mr. Anderson will be interim until such time as we are able to perform a search process and hire a permanent county administrator. I look forward to this process and hope that it's a full and complete one that will hopefully yield a number of finalist candidates for the board to final approval, so we can once again have a fully functioning and responsive administrative office. The board is discussing a change to its well and septic inspection program to move to a partially or even fully privatized inspection regime. While there are very few inspections inside city limits, I do think the time and energy alone to change ordinance and reallocation of resources within the health department will be a detriment, and the overall benefit of such a change does not strike me as very evident. And finally, the board is continuing to look at funding for the Ottawa Food effort, but as of yet has failed to land on any funding plan for the coordinator position, which Ottawa County has a relatively long history of funding entirely out of general fund funds. I hope that we can eventually decide on a plan, as the Ottawa community has been fairly vocal in its desire to have Ottawa County continue being part of this important program. That's all for today. Residents, as always, are welcome to reach out at dzylstra@myottawa.org or at my personal number, 616-443-4281. Appreciate it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address council at this time? And would you please state your name and municipality for the record?
Ann Henriksen, Zealand. I thought I would bring an actual invitation to the National April Faith Month event at the Civic Center, April 24th at noon. This is a presentation of the First Liberty Institute, waking up Holland with what the 2022 Supreme Court had ruled for them, to know that they have the right to religious freedom of expressive speech. The 1971 Lemon Law rhetoric is null and void. Separation of church and state has been restored to its original meaning, written by President Jefferson. I would say it would be wisdom on your part, Council, to attend. Taylor Birchfield gave me the okay to invite you personally. The deadline for registration is April 15th. Ottawa County Commissioners are invited also. I've included inside the invitation the sermon spoken by Dr. Martin Luther King, 1957, that I had read to you, that you would have in your hands How to Love Your Enemies from the book of Matthew. It always convicts me, aligning my attitudes towards God's intentions for relationships on all levels. What do we hate? The systems that destroy others. What do we love? Those individuals who are caught in the systems. 2024 St. Patrick's Day Parade in Holland was fun and a great success. Like the other celebrations in Holland, again, the faith aspect is not included. Tonight I will read the Chuck Colston Breakpoint commentary of 2006. Patrick was born in Roman Britain into a middle-class family in 390 AD. When Patrick was a teenager, marauding Irish raiders attacked his home. Patrick was captured, taken to Ireland, and sold to an Irish king, who put him to work as a shepherd. In his excellent book, How the Irish Saved Civilization, Thomas Cahill describes the life of Patrick that Patrick lived. Cahill writes, "The work of such a slave shepherds was bitterly isolated, with months at a time spent alone in the hills. Patrick had been raised in a Christian home, but he didn't really believe in God. But now, hungry, lonely, and frightened, and bitterly cold, Patrick began seeking out a relationship with his Heavenly Father. As he wrote in his confessions, I would pray constantly during the daylight hours, and the love of God surrounded me more and more. 6 years later, after his capture, God spoke to Patrick in a dream, saying, your hungers are rewarded. You're going back home. Look, your ship is ready." What a startling command. If he obeyed, Patrick would become a fugitive slave, constantly in danger of capture and punishment. But he did obey, and God protected him. The young slave walked nearly 200 miles to the Irish coast. There he boarded a waiting ship and traveled back to Britain and his family. But as you might expect, Patrick was a different person now, and the restless young man could not settle back into his old life. Eventually, Patrick recognized that God was calling him into the monastery. In time, he was ordained as a priest and then a bishop. Finally, 30 years after God had led Patrick away from Ireland, he called him back to the Emerald Island as a missionary. The Irish of the 5th century was a pagan, violent, and barbaric people. Human sacrifice was commonplace. Patrick understood the dangers and wrote, I am ready to be murdered, betrayed, enslaved, whatever may come. Cahill notes that Patrick's love for the Irish shines through his writings. He worried constantly for his people, not just for their spiritual, but for their physical welfare. Through Patrick, God converted thousands. Oh dear. Only this former slave had the right instincts to impart to the Irish a new story. And it would behoove us also, with our parades and cardboard leprechauns and the wearing of the green, to have the right to express our Christian heritage, celebrate this great evangelist, and teach our kids about our Christian hero. I made it. Got time to spare. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address council at this time? Seeing none, I will close the public comment period. Next item on the agenda, item 7A, PA 198 tax abatement for El Perigo Company, 700 Interchange Drive. Mr. Van Beek.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council, and public here and viewing from home. You're probably all happy that now, but probably not as happy as I. Mark Myers now, in our new role as Community and Neighborhood Services Director, also oversees economic development. So he's giving the lead in to all these 198 abatements and talks about 100% of nothing or 50% of something and all that kind of stuff. So Mark, I know, has other introductions of guests that we have here tonight. So take it away, Mark. And I'm not sure, the clicker's not up there, is it?
It is not.
Mr. Van Dyken has it down there
He's
for you
got
if
it.
you want.
You're on it. Thanks, Matt. Thank you, Keith. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, council members. I am pleased to present another industrial expansion here in Holland. El Perigo Company is requesting an industrial facilities tax abatement on a new distribution facility. They plan to invest $18.6 million and create 30 new jobs by building a 357,000 square foot distribution facility. It'll be their largest facility serving North America, and we're pleased to have them here in Holland. So those are the highlights. We do have a representative from the company, Chad Calderon, who can also answer any questions that I can't. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from council? All right. I think we're good. Thank you.
Right.
What is the pleasure of council in regard to this item? Moved by Corbin. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Byrd. Any discussion? Seeing none. Matt, would you please call the roll?
Raymond,
Yes.
Corbin, Soul,
Yes.
Rowan,
Yes.
Shea,
Yes.
Schulteis,
Yes.
Byrd,
Yes.
and Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
That passes.
Great, thank you. Next item on the agenda, item 8A, unfinished business, traffic changes, parking restrictions, 16th Street, 17th Street, 24th Street, and Fair Hill Court. Mr. Van Beek.
Yes, I'm going to ask Mr. Brian White to come up, who is a member of our traffic committee, and can talk through each of these 3 recommendations. I know one thing he will describe is we are making a recommendation that we table one of these items for tonight. But Brian can walk us through that, and Matt's clicking for you there, Brian.
All right, great. Good evening, Mayor Box, council members, members of the public, and those of you tuning in. Before you tonight is a request from the traffic committee for some parking restrictions. Locations as shown on the map there, highlighted in red. As you'll recall, and as we do with all of these types of requests from the traffic committee for traffic parking restrictions, this item came to you initially at the prior council meeting on March 6th. We then, as a matter of course, postponed that so that we can get notices out to the property owners that are adjacent to these proposed parking areas and allow them to provide comment before any action is taken. So that process occurred, and we did receive 2 comments from folks in the area of 24th Street there, just to the east of Ottawa Avenue. And as City Manager Van Beek indicated, I think it would be appropriate for us to proceed with the items before you, with exception to the 24th Street item, and allow staff to go back and speak with those folks specifically about the items that they brought up, and then bring that back to you at a later time. So before you tonight then is just the other items there for the proposed parking restrictions, and then staff would then proceed with talking with the folks there at 24th Street about that specific item. Bring that back at a later date.
Great. Thank you, Brian. Are there any questions from council members? I just have one for clarification. Matt, if you can click back to that first map that was up there. Yeah, at first glance, it looks like we're restricting parking on the entirety of 16th Street. But if you look closely, that's not the case, correct?
Yes, and that's there's dashed lines there on 16th and 17th Street. And what we've done there is just taken a corridor approach. There's been a few areas within those corridors that have been highlighted for parking restrictions. Those are itemized in the council packet, and that's, again, just specific to a couple of those areas within those corridors.
Yeah, I can see it here on mine, but if you're not looking at a big picture of it, highlight of it, it looks like it might be the entire length, but clearly that's not the case.
Yeah, we're not the parking Nazis. So.
All right. Any other questions from council? Great. Thank you, Brian.
Okay, thank you.
What is the pleasure of council in regard to item 8A?
How would you like to go about doing this? Would you like to table this independently?
I guess we
24th Street?
we should ask Vince that to make sure that we word this correctly. If council were interested in tabling just the portion of 24th Street and moving forward with the others, I don't want to be presumptive, but if that's what the wish of council is, should we do that in 2 separate motions? Should we do that in 1 motion?
Yeah, I mean, the motion to table is to be decided without debate. So you just need to identify very specifically what it is that you're seeking to table, so everyone knows what they're voting on. Because this item, there are 3 items sort of embedded in the report, I think it's important, if there is a motion to table, that it's specific as to which of the 3 items the motion relates to, and that is decided without debate, and then the remainder of the items could then proceed in normal course.
So would it be sufficient to say, I move to table this item in regard to 24th Street only?
I think that would be sufficient, because they are identified by their street names.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, a motion to approve to table item 8A regarding traffic changes and parking restrictions to 24th Street.
Okay.
Support.
Moved by Corbin, support by Rowan. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign? motion to table carries. Any other, what is the pleasure of council in regard to the remainder of this item?
Move to approve the remainder 16th and 17th Street restrictions
And Fair Hill Court?
and Fairhill Court.
All right.
Support.
Moved by Sol, support by Rowan. Any discussion?
Yeah, if you don't mind.
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Shea.
I think this is important just to mention that I do think that these are a safety concern, particularly the photos that we see with the turn lanes and things. But I don't want us to become complacent because there is the perceived safety and then there is what is true, what proves to be safe, talking about traffic calming measures and things like that. So I just want to say that, you know, if we go back to our master plan, you're going to see things like traffic calming measures, complete streets, which is a whole concept, is very important. And so I really think that we need to take all of these things very seriously. And like I say, I think this is a safety thing, but we need to take these things very seriously because they are life and death for pedestrians, non-car users. So I appreciate the work that the Transportation Department has done, and I think this is all very good, but I just want to make sure we're all kind of keeping that in mind.
Okay, great, thank you. Any other discussion? Seeing none. Matt, would you please call the roll?
Corbin. Yes. Sol.
Yes.
Rowan.
Yes.
Shay.
Yes.
Schulteis.
Yes.
Byrd.
Yes.
Raymond.
Yes.
And Mayor Box.
Yes.
That passes.
Great, thank you. In addition to providing the opportunity for the public to speak to us directly at council meetings, we do also have an email address that is designed specifically to allow members of the public to communicate with council. That is publiccomment@cityofholland.com. Once again, for those at home writing it down, publiccomment@cityofholland.com. We receive those emails in between our regular meetings, and when we receive them, we do accept them into the record. We don't read them out loud at the meetings, but accept them as part of the record of the meeting. And we do have one this evening. And what is the pleasure of council in regard to the public comment that we have received as a written petition and communication?
Move to receive it.
Moved by Byrd. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Sol. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next item on the agenda, item 12E 2.1, adopt resolutions to amend the Washington Square Business Improvement District and the South Shore Village Business Improvement District. Mr. Van Beek.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, council, public. I'm going to ask Anna Minabeau to come up. Anna is one of our preservation planners. She has been with the city for some time now, and just in this last year came to full time. We're very excited for the opportunity for her, but for the service that she's providing to the city and our citizens. And one of the assignments that she has is working with the Washington Square and South Shore Village Business Improvement Districts. And she's going to give you an outline of probably a little bit what those are, but also a change to the boundaries that we're recommending tonight. So
Yeah.
thanks, Anna.
Thank you, Keith, and thank you, Council. Keith's absolutely right. I'm here today to request an adoption to resolutions to amend the Washington Square Business Improvement District and South Shore Village Business Improvement District boundaries. So on the screen in front of you, you can see the updated maps, and I'll go through what those previous maps looked like so you can see the changes. The changes are very minimal. Both improvement districts would just be having one property excluded from the boundaries. For a little bit of background, both the Washington Square bid and the South Shore Village bid were originally adopted by City Council in May of 2015, and they've been operating under the same resolution since then. Business improvement districts are created to promote economic development, and they also allow these areas to apply for grants and other state-funded benefits that other parts of the municipality don't have access to. Bids are authorized through PA 120, which is the same establishing legislation for the principal shopping districts. So a lot of what we do is very similar to that in Washington Square and South Shore Village. It's just happening on a smaller scale. So both of our bids have seen growth and development since 2015. That was 9 years ago. Including, I just want to plug the recent neighborhood engagement and visioning plans that were completed. Washington Squares was part of the newest master plan refresh that happened last summer. and kind of rolling off of those, looking at sort of refreshing what we're doing there. We've had a couple of changes in properties and how they're being used. So bids are intended for businesses, and both of the properties that I'm bringing forward to you tonight are residential or are now serving residential purposes. So first, on Washington Square, you can see 431 Washington is actually now 209 West 18th Street. It used to be a laundromat, then it was a vacant lot, and now it's the site of a new single-family home. So if any of you have been past there, you've probably seen it. It's no longer appropriate for it to be in the Business Improvement District, and that's why we're requesting the amendment to the boundaries in Washington Square. And then Matt, if you head to the next one, South Shore Village, 341 West 16th Street was way to the east side of the original boundaries. Historically was a commercial structure, and by historically I mean decades and decades ago. But most recently has been a single-family residential dwelling situation. It was rezoned or zoned RMU with UDO, so its residential single-family status was grandfathered in with its current zoning. The intent with including it in the Business Improvement District originally, to the best of my understanding, was that someday it might serve a commercial purpose again with that RMU designation. But until it has a viable commercial component, we're recommending removing it from the bid boundaries. It's not a rezoning, it's just excluding it from the boundaries. And you can see that on the new map, it's not even on the map because it was so far east. And so those are the two locations. Again, very, very minimal changes, but kind of just showing that we're staying up to date on our maps. You can see Alex's skills in kind of bringing these maps in alignment with current sort of city brand standards and yeah, keeping our information up to date. Yeah. Any questions?
Yep. Any questions from council? Yes, Mr. Schulteis.
Good learning opportunity for me. Is any impact with this change on the residents?
No, so they would, the residents as a residential use would not have any access to the benefits of the Business Improvement District. They can still benefit from those improvements by living there and being in that neighborhood, but they wouldn't have received funding themselves. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? I just have one. What do we have a process for adding a property into the Business Improvement District? I'm thinking specifically about property. I think it's at Cleveland and 17th. That's the new portion behind Port 393. Yes.
I will note that in reviewing the information for this today, I realized that that is now connected with that property.
Mm-hmm.
I would turn to Vince, but I would think that we would do a similar process, just the reverse of it expanding.
Okay. It's
So
premature to do that tonight, but something that may be coming to us in the future.
it crossed my mind.
Okay.
Correct.
All right.
Good
Any other questions from council members? Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. What is the pleasure of council in regard to this item?
Move to adopt resolution to amend the Washington Square Business Improvement District and South Shore Village Business Improvement District.
Moved by Byrd. Is there support?
Second.
Support by Raymond. Any discussion? Seeing none. Matt, would you please call the roll?
Soul,
Yes.
Rowan,
Yes.
Shay,
Yes.
Schulteis,
Yes.
Byrd,
Yep. Yes.
Raymond,
Yes.
Corbin, Mayor Box.
Yes. Motion passes. Thank you. Next item on the agenda, item 12E 6.1, gifts. Matt, would you please review the gifts for us?
The city manager's office is pleased to report the following gifts to the Parks and Recreation Department. A $400 donation from the Community Foundation of the Holland Zealand area, Bassino Wetmeyer Fund for maintenance of the World War II Garden Memorial, and a $250 donation from Robert L. Sturkin for the purchase of a tree in appreciation for the service of J. Peters to the City of Holland. It is recommended that these donations be accepted with appreciation, credited to the appropriate accounts, and an expression of gratitude be forwarded to the donors.
Great. Thank you. What is the pleasure of council in regard to the gifts?
Move to approve.
Moved by Soul. Is there support? Support by Rowan. Any discussion? It's more of a question, and Matt, you may know, or I know Andy's here. Is there a location for that tree in honor of J. Peters?
I believe we accept the donations, and then we evaluate where the best location would be for said tree to show up in the city.
All right, great, thank you, appreciate that. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next item on the agenda, item 12E 6.2, approval of budget for the construction of the window on the waterfront ice park. Mr. Van Beek.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. I promised Matt I wouldn't speak long tonight because he's going to speak a little bit more, and I think he really is going to do a great job of going through the history of this project. But I am just going to pause because, you know, a lot of things happen in the life of a city. A lot of them you just do, right? And then every once in a while there's something that we're right on the precipice, depending on how you vote tonight, of really launching something that we've worked on for a long time, and you can't help but see how excited that we are about this project. As I said, big night, and we're really excited about it. Matt is going to review the 5-year history. You know, one of the things that you all have been part of discussions in at least that 5 years, and I look down to Quincy, I know as soon as I started, there were discussions about 6th Street, and there were discussions about what exactly are we going to do with 6th Street. And I remember those conversations, and I remember pretty early on, we kind of decided on a strategy where we said, you know, this is one of those times where we're going to invest public dollars, and we're going to invest in having a process to really talk to not only all the citizens, but particularly the private property owners in that area. And we're going to set a vision, and we're going to make public investments, and we believe that public investment is going to spur private investment. And this is one of those key things tonight. Everyone knows how 6th Street already looks a lot different. We know here in City Hall about how that has already spurred a lot of conversations and what I call tire kickers about investing privately along 6th Street. But here is really an opportunity to really do something with public investment that I think the community is going to greatly benefit from. The last thing I'll say is just there's no shortage of thank yous that can go around to get us to this point. It really starts, obviously, with Frank Cry, who's had a beautiful vision for this area for a long time and backed up that vision with a lead gift. That gift was matched by both the Jury's family and the Hayworth family in what I'll say financially big ways, but there was no shortage of other people across this community that also stepped up and said, I want to be part of this, because they believed in the vision, and hopefully we're delivering on that vision tonight and going into the next year. There were so many other partners, though, and donors. Community Foundation was key. We had an important state grant that we went after and received. The Smart Zone was a member. We had an honorary cabinet that we did a lot of fundraising, right, Mayor? And so this is just a really exciting night. And I know for our staff sitting in the back corner back there, I don't know if they're going to be more excited before you take a vote or after you take a vote, because it's going to get real really quick, hopefully. But we're just really excited, and a lot of thank yous go along. Like so many things in this city, this is the result of a lot of collaboration and partnership. So we're excited to present this. And Matt, why don't you go ahead and give more details?
Yeah, thanks, Keith. This is a exciting night where, you know, one of the exciting things about our jobs is every once in a while we get to make dreams come true. And tonight we have the possibility of doing that depending on your vote. So we're going to go through a lot of what kind of where we've been, where we've had work done, what we're proposing. We've got some some things to look at tonight, and then what those costs are to do that. But before I do that, I want to recognize the team that actually brought us to the point where we are right now. And that team, first and foremost, is the City Parks Department. Those three guys sitting in the back have been key to this whole project, key to moving it forward. We have the folks from GMB and B32 Engineering. We have GDK Construction, GZA Environmental, Soils and Structures Engineering. Keith mentioned the Community Foundation. Our City Finance Department has been key in this, but also our Streets Department and our BPW have been huge partners in getting this thing set up so that once 6th Street is complete, we're ready to go. So a lot of people involved in looking at this. I can say with a very high level of confidence that we've done every piece of due diligence we can possibly think of. If there's some other thing we could have done, I have no idea what that is, and none of those partners do either. So we think we're at a pretty good spot right now. So with that, the journey, this has been talked about. We can trace it back to, I believe, some of the early Tulip Time discussions, but my involvement in it really started back in September of 2019 when we said we've had this in the Capital Improvement Fund. We know this is something that the City Council wants us to pursue. So we began in 5 years ago looking at what could we do at that corner. What are some of the conceptual ideas? So we worked with GMB to come up with these things, and this was kind of okay. We need to know where we're headed, but how long does it get there? What are the costs? What do we need to do? And then this fine gentleman stepped up, and he walked in the room with a very large check, and that caused us all to say, well, we need to hit the accelerator pedal a little bit more. So Frank Cry is an amazing human being. I think he's someone that we can all look to as just someone to be like when we grow up, right? I want to be like Frank when I grow up. I think that'd be awesome. So he's given over $1 million. It's his dream to have skating, and as Keith alluded to, there's all these people and partners in the community that have all chipped in to not only do the planning side and the architecture and engineering side, but also to fund it financially. So we got started in June of 2021. This photograph is a little bit, if you don't know what you're looking at, it's hard to discern, but that is a geotechnical soil boring rig stuck in Window on the Waterfront Park. Not quite to the axles, but not far from it. So we started in earnest doing the work that we needed to do to understand what's in the ground in the area that we're going to want to build this thing, so that when we do build it, we don't have to touch it ever again. It's just done correctly. January of 2022, the four of us hopped in a car. They stuck Andy and I in the back with a bag of snacks, and we visited 3 different ice rinks. None of us have ever run a refrigerated ice rink, and we were welcomed in every place we went with open arms. Park staffs all over the place are great people. They just want to help. So we learned a lot about not only what do we want in our ice park, but how do we run it? What are the logistics? So this has been a huge, long learning process for us. This is actually an update that I gave to a version of the City Council in March of 2022 on the MCIF, and this is the ice rink. What do we have to do? We have to go through a public process, approvals, cost estimates, fundraising. So March of 2022, we're saying we have got a lot to do to get to item number 3 from the bottom on this list, and that's construction. We did that. We were in this room, we were in all the places that you see noted in the slide to do community outreach, to make sure that our folks understood, our design folks understood, what does the community want? We're not building this for me, we're building this for the community. So that was a huge part of what we did. And then we came up with these conceptual designs. So these were the dream big designs. We're not worried about conditions, we're not worried about costs. What do we really want? And this is what that group came up with, and this was the one on the right, I think, is May of 2022, so we're progressing along. That brings us to today. So this is the site plan for what is proposed at Window on the Waterfront for the skate park. This is a pond device connected to a ribbon that's approximately 14 feet wide. It has a curling rink, which was Frank's suggestion, which I think is great. A plaza. It has a concession, skate rental building, snow melted areas. It has a separate building that's for the refrigeration and the Zamboni and all the other equipment that would service the ice. There's a few of us in the room that this site plan probably makes a lot of sense to, but most people look at that and they have a hard time envisioning what we're actually gonna build. So we bring in renderings. And I'll go through a few of these renderings. This is actually from the northwest, looking back towards 6th Street. But it gives you a little bit of an idea of what we're proposing to build, where this ice rink really acts as a connection between the downtown and nature at Window on the Waterfront Park. You can see in here, it's a little hard to see, maybe we have some better photos later, but we have 3 fire pits integrated in this that people can sit around, keep warm. This is obviously in the summertime, we want this ice park to obviously be an ice park, but have the ability to be programmed in all the other seasons. Tulip time, this is a very active area, so we think there are some opportunities there, along with many others that the park staff is working through. The same image of the wintertime. You can see the snow melted areas are obviously snow melted on the ice. And then some springtime shots. This happens to be the entrance. There's a walkway path that comes down and in. This is from 6th Street looking back, a little easier to see the curling rink, the pond, and then the ribbon and the buildings. At night, lighting is very important. We want to make sure that when you're standing on the Kilwins New Holland corner on 8th Street, you see a glow to the north and you understand that there's something there. You might not be able to tell exactly what it is, but it draws you further down towards Window on the Waterfront. The curling, I think this is going to be a very active, very interesting area. You can see there another one of the fire pits. These fire pits will have a screen. We've got to make sure we comply with all of our fire marshal rules, but they'll have a screen over them as well. Looking down into the curling rink and back at the ribbon. Then curling at night, the idea is we could pull food trucks along 6th Street potentially and have all kinds of different events out there. So I think the possibilities of what can happen in this area with this kind of a facility beyond just ice skating are pretty interesting. So where we're at with the cost. So the project was bid out. We had really extensive, we spent a lot of time at GDK's office doing post-bid interviews, doing reviews of what was submitted to make sure that everything, yes, will do and function the way we need it to. So this recommendation to award the bid comes from GMB and B32 Engineers and Architects, our main architect in the project. It comes from GDK Construction, and it comes from the manager's office. So what does this include? What are we looking at? It's all construction, all AE fees, the building, the ice rink, the curling rink, the refrigeration system, landscaping, fire pits, restrooms, lighting, audio is all included in this budget. And then all accessories needed to operate the rink. So if you look at a little bit more of the detail, which is included in your packet, we have a Zamboni. Everybody wants to drive the Zamboni, right? We have a tool cat that we need to use to clear snow off the ice before we treat it if we've got a big snow. Ice skates, a sharpener for the skates, concessions equipment, ice trainers. So they make ice trainers so that people like me, and they make cute little ones for the kids that are penguins, so we're gonna get a few of those too, so that people don't fall over. So all of that is we've included all the costs associated with building and running the facility in this budget. The construction side, the vast majority of it will be issued through GDK. And then our side, we will purchase the accessories, but it is included in the budget. So the total budget recommendation for City Council approval potentially is $11,364,953. Council action tonight would direct GDK to issue contracts for the completion of the rink. And I would be happy to answer. There's not a lot of detail on the construction side. If there's anything you would like to know, I'd be happy to answer those.
All right. Questions for Matt?
Yes.
Mr. Corbin?
Matt, just for the public, could you explain a little bit of how the ice will be maintained during the winter months? I mean, and especially like when it starts to warm. But then part 2 of that is, could you also tell us how this facility will be used in non-winter months?
Yeah, so the first piece is that building in the image on the left-hand side is a refrigeration room. So just like we've got snow melt downtown that heats the sidewalks and melts the snow, there's a system of PEX tubing underneath the ice sheet that actually runs on a refrigeration system that cools it. So it's not just a weather dependent. This winter, I don't think we could safely ice skate on any ponds that I'm aware of in this area. So the system is refrigerated so that we guarantee that we can have ice basically November through March every year. So it's a refrigerated system. That's a big part of the package. That's about $3.5 million of the cost, is to make sure that it's a refrigerated system so that it's cooled. The Zamboni comes in, lays the water, and actually services the ice so it's a really nice, smooth, frozen piece. To answer that first part of your question. And then the second piece is our recreation department is talking about a number of the things. I mentioned Tulip Time. I think this is going to be the epicenter of Tulip Time in the future once we've got it built. We have restrooms. We're immediately adjacent to all the tulip fields and window on the waterfront. We have the ability to do concessions. They do their walking tours. So just that 10-day period, I think that's going to be a lot of what it is. But our recreation department has talked about a lot of different things. And we have a couple of different areas here that we can do dance, you can do yoga, you can do all those kind of things. You've got covered areas. You can do that when it rains or it's too sunny outside. I know they've been talking with a lot of different partners on what other kinds of recreation can be run out of here. So our Parks and Rec department is planning on programming this pretty heavily throughout the entire year. Obviously in the wintertime, it's pretty much going to be an ice rink, but in the summertime, you could do ballet, you could do yoga, you could do any of those things around this facility. And also, and I forgot to mention that, I apologize, but we have a very, very popular nature-based playground about 75 yards from this that only has porta potties. Well, we'll have these bathrooms open in the summertime so that the kiddos and adults can use the restrooms from this facility. So we really do feel like it's a nice park, but it is going to be a year-round use and an asset to the community.
Other questions? Yeah, Lynn and then Quincy.
Yeah, Matt, I wonder if you could talk a little bit about, those unforeseen circumstances. I see you've got some contingency in the budget. Could you talk about how that's calculated, and that would help me to understand what you might be anticipating?
Yeah, so there's a couple of contingencies in there. We've done a lot of the research with the soils, but we've hired a company to build the ice rink itself, but we don't have a lot of experience doing that. So we do have a very healthy contingency in there for the soil disposal, right? So what do we need to do with soils some of it is not good stuff, but also what if we've missed a part or something needs to be added later in the game to the ice package? We don't think that's going to be the case. So that's kind of 1, 2, and then the third piece is just the construction contingency, and that's just a percentage of the construction cost. That's pretty standard. But the other two kind of pieces of that are a little more, we're dealing with an outlier that none of us have dealt with at all, and we think we need to have some extra money sitting there. So there's a percentage that's just a percentage of the project cost, and then some others that are just pots. The really nice thing about those pots of money is if we don't use them, we do not spend them. So of that very healthy contingency, there's a chance that a large portion of it could come back. We're going to use some of it. We've never done a project that didn't require some contingency. It's just how much. Part of the recommendation in the packet actually authorizes us additionally to have change orders up to $50,000. That means we can do that within that project budget. But if anything were to go really haywire and go much higher cost, we would have to come back to you to talk about that.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you. Mm-hmm. And also, what is an AE fee?
Architects and engineer.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Quincy?
Yes, there was a lot of community involvement in this project as well, as you stated. Wondering if you could talk a little bit about the fundraising activities and effort that was given.
Yeah, so Keith actually headed the fundraising up. I was dealing with a few other things on the project during that time, so perhaps it's best to kick that question back to him.
Yeah, thank you for the question and the opportunity to make sure that we recognize that, again, we had very large lead donors, but we also were very intentional and we're very successful, and we're happy about the kids. I'm thinking of our HR director there in the back that had two pretty cute kids that helped in promoting this, but also doing some things around the house and things in the neighborhood, so they contributed to this ice rink too. Frank Cry really encouraged us right from the get-go, and we understand already in our park system that when people know that they have ownership of something, that means so much in so many different ways. So you put all of the gifts that we had to date, and we're still accepting donations, by the way, from anyone. I'm going to say that we're just about at that $7 million that we raised from private funds. Then we also had, Council, you might remember, that specifically we set aside, I'm going to say $2.4 million. I may be slightly off on some of these numbers, but I'm pretty close, of our Rescue Plan Act funds, or I always called them the state and local fiscal recovery funds, or SLIFRIF. Yeah, Quincy, I got you to smile on that. We also specifically wanted to set aside some of those funds targeted for this project. So you put that together, then we are, really at less than $2 million then. That would be an additional contribution from the citizens of Holland through our Municipal Capital Improvement Fund. And we think this is exactly the type of thing that's appropriate for us to use those funds for, and that we've gotten a lot of pretty positive feedback about this as a project. And next week, you'll hear more about our long-term financial forecast that Lynn is always working on. There's probably not more than a week or two that goes by that Lynn and I are not talking about that. But we are continue to be comfortable that this is a cost that fits within our larger financial forecast, and we think we wouldn't be recommending it to you tonight unless we think it's a good investment.
Other questions from council members? Kim?
Thank you, Mayor. Matt or Keith, I know that this is, we're taking up the consideration of the construction approval, but just jumping ahead, what do you anticipate the management to look like? Is that going to fall under the management of the Parks and Recs or outside management? And then you did allay some forecasting of you renting it out as a venue. So it sounds like it's going to be an active business proposition for the city. How do you anticipate it being managed and run?
Yeah, so we actually hired a gentleman in the Parks and Recreation Department that is going to be running Bowes Pool in the summertime and then switching over here and helping manage this in the wintertime. So it will be staffed by our Parks and Recreation Department. They will be in charge of all of those, and we'll come back with fee schedules for skate rentals and things like that for you. But yes, one of the parks that we visited, Howard Park in South Bend, they gave us their financials, and it was actually positive to them. Not a big positive, and like everything we do, if we break even, we're doing pretty good, and I think this has got the potential to do that. But we also want to balance the financials always with making sure that everybody in our community has a chance to enjoy the space. They're the ones that are paying for it, and we want to make sure that we price it so that everybody feels welcome and can come out and afford to ice skate. And that's a goal that we've had since, I think, day one. Council has reiterated that on a number of occasions. But yes, we do think this is a better than break-even possibility.
Other questions from council members? Mike?
Not question, but comment. I really appreciate somewhat the emphasis of the all-in costs. It really sounds like and looks like a whole lot of studying and upfront work and homework and evaluation to get to a level of confidence for the project. So really appreciate you and Andy and the staff going out on a road show looking for comparisons and sticking points for us. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. Other questions?
Not a question, just a
Mr. Corbin?
comment.
Yeah, go ahead, Scott.
So, one, just thank you, Frank, for spurring this investment in our community, both investing in the infrastructure, but also the people, the community. But what's fascinating is 83%, just figuring up the numbers here, 83% of the cost is covered by donations. Wow, I mean, what else, what other community can say that? I think that's just, it sends big message to the community here in Holland, but around the area as well.
Other questions? I've got a couple of follow-ups, and Scott, you tied in. Keith, you said $7 million in fundraising. That includes that $800,000 MEDC placemaking grant?
Correct.
In there? Okay, which brings us up then to, what, about about $9.4 million that's raised of the $11.3 million budget. We just did a bunch of work on 6th Street as well. How much was the 6th Street redevelopment project?
I'm going to round down to $9 million through the investments of both the Holland Board of Public Works and the city.
And how much of that was reimbursed through brownfield redevelopment, or how much do we anticipate is going to be?
Pretty much the whole thing.
Pretty much the whole thing. So we've got about $20 million of improvement in the north downtown area that taxpayers are going to be paying about 10 cents on the dollar for, and having an incredible benefit that comes from it as well. Am I correct?
Your math is usually right on, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you. I just wanted to put a big exclamation point on that, because it's great people like Frank Cry that was the spark to this. And for those people who don't know, Frank is not a wealthy man. Frank is a retired public school teacher who used a substantial, as we've referred to, a gift of a lifetime, a substantial amount of his net worth going toward this. And I still remember the call when Jim Juries called and said, I want to be part of this. Cheryl and I want to be part of this. We want to make sure that we give $1 less than Frank does, because we want to make sure that Frank is always the number one donor on this. Can't thank the Hayworth Corporation and family enough. The community that stepped up. One organization that's not been mentioned yet at this point is Hope College. That we went to Hope and asked them and said this is going to be a benefit to the college as well. And while they were interested in making a financial investment, the part that warmed my heart more than anything else was the Hope College Student Activities Committee said, we're interested in providing some money, but really what we'd like to do is we'd like to give ice skating lessons to the kids of Holland, Michigan. And for college students to step up and say, we want to be part of this community. We want to connect to this community. We want to give back to this community, I think is an amazing thing. And then, Matt, I have one very selfish question for you. Are the orange picnic tables a given at this point, or is that just a proposal that's out there? Because, I could really get behind the orange picnic tables.
We're still taking donations to the ice park.
Ooh, I took that hook, line, and sinker, didn't I? Any other questions from, yes, go ahead, Ms. Rowan.
Sorry, Mayor, I don't mean to follow up with a
No,
practical
go
question
right ahead.
on that beautiful expression. I just want to know if you can quickly speak to some of the parking support for the ice rink and the surrounding area, please.
Yeah, so the great thing about this location is we have a public parking deck that's roughly 1 block away from the entrance of this. But in addition, we actually did include angled parking on 6th Street as part of the 6th Street reconstruction project. So we do have additional parking immediately adjacent to it. We also have in some of the longer term plans now for Window on the Waterfront, pushing College Avenue further, which would allow for other angled parking along College Avenue immediately adjacent to the park, and then also cul-de-sacing that at the end with additional parking. Along with that, we also are working towards redoing the parking lot that's to immediately the east of the nature-based playground, and also adding angled parking along 5th Street approaching that. Our Parks and Recreation Department, if you haven't been out there, actually have a little volleyball, I'm not gonna little, it's big, volleyball pavilion, and are working on putting sand volleyball courts out there, so we're gonna need additional parking for that as well. So we've got a parking deck close, we've got additional angled parking close to it, and we've got plans for additional parking in the future out in that area.
Yeah, fair.
The planned additional parking, that's not assumed into this budget?
It is not, no.
Thank you.
Any other questions for staff? Great. Thank you, Matt. Appreciate it. What is the pleasure of council in regard to this item?
Move to approve.
Moved by Byrd. Is there support, Mr. Schulteis?
Support.
Support by Schulteis. Any discussion? Ms. Raymond?
Yeah, I would also just like to echo what's been said. Thank you so much to the staff. I'm so grateful for your diligence in exploring and trying to find the best options for the money that we're put. This is a lot of money to approve, and I feel completely confident in the work you've done, and I'm so appreciative of your transparency and the detail that you've given us. So thank you so much for instilling that confidence and for just doing some really great work on this.
Mr. Byrd, did you have something?
Okay,
Ms.
well,
Rowan?
piggybacking, thank you. Piggybacking on what Lynn just said, Matt, I know that many cities have maybe one project in a career of a city manager, assistant city manager, and you've got, I don't know, juggling qualities that are helping you manage several of them. Congratulations for the fine work that you're doing, and thank you very much for your efforts.
Thank you.
Mr. Byrd?
Just to piggyback off of that just a little bit, both of you guys, but Matt's a unicorn, right? So he has those traits. But I really want to thank all of our staff, and you guys do a awesome job. There's not a city that I go to that has the collection of nice parks, and we have that here in Holland. This right here is for our community. I look at the world we live in today, and there's so much division. It's either you're on this side or you're on that side, and this right here echoes what Frank wanted. He wanted everybody in one place having a great time. And ice skating's fun. I grew up playing hockey and ice skating on ponds. There's a couple times I've seen other people fall through, and that's not fun. It's always funny, but it's not fun. And you know, we talk about Frank and his donation of $1 million, but we don't talk too much about Frank and the 10 years of giving that equaled $116,000. He continuously gave. There are times where I talk about the gifts at times, like we always get gifts from somebody in our community. And Frank was on that list consistently. It might be $40, it might be $120, but he was always giving for this cause right here. And thank you, Frank, and it's just a testament of the great community we live in and the great people in this community. And I'm proud to live in Holland and thankful to live in Holland. It's one of the, this place is gonna be a mecca for families, for parents. We took our kids to 32nd and Luger growing up, not us growing up, when the kids were growing up, ice skating, and it was a hit or miss. We'd go out to ice skate, and sometimes there'd be ice, sometimes there wouldn't be ice, and it was always a bummer because now we have high energy kids that go back in the house, and something was always broken. So this is an outlet, and then on top of that, as Matt alluded to before, we have a park that's a few yards away, and you alluded to this a little bit about what the plans were for 6th Street, and it's just exciting to see. We've talked about this. How long you been on? 6 years now? 6 years. So we're talking about this even before you came on board, and all these years later, we're starting to see all this stuff happen. It's starting to get laid out before our eyes, and again, it goes to the planning that we have in place here at Holland. So I'm pretty excited about it, if you can't tell. So thank you guys for everything.
Any other discussion? This is a big deal. I just noticed, Matt, we've started calling it the ice park. Is it the Holland Ice Park? So it's going to be hip? I've been holding that for about 20 minutes. There's a story in this town that goes back 100 years. A lot of us know the story of Lyda Rogers, a Holland High School biology teacher that gave a speech in 1927 to the Women's Literary Club, talking about the fact that we ought to celebrate our Dutch heritage and plant tulips. What we learned about a year ago that we didn't realize is that in that same speech, she said one of the things that this community needed was a community ice skating rink. 100 years ago, she suggested that for the community. We've been working on that dream and hoping for that dream for 100 years. And as Quincy so eloquently said, Frank Cry was the catalyst of that, not just the $1 million, but the $116,000 that he gave ahead of that as well. All of the other donors that came forward, the incredible work from the Holland Community Foundation, from Afton DeVos, who helped us with the fundraising, all of the members of the community that have come out. Matt has said, Matt's been here longer than anybody has and done a lot of projects with the City of Holland. And every single project, no matter what it is, there's always at least one person that comes out of the woodwork and says, that is the dumbest idea I have ever heard. Not one person has thought that this was a bad idea. It's never been in my mind a matter of if we should do it. It's always been, how can we do it? And I've been keeping my fingers crossed for years that the numbers that we're seeing tonight are the numbers that would be coming in on this deal. This is a 100-year dream of working together to create, as Quincy said, a place where all people can come together and have a good time. In these days of people staring at their phones and kids being on their computers and people not talking to one another but texting to one another, we are looking for places and opportunities for people to interact with one another together as a community. And you know what? It's awfully hard to look at your phone when you're ice skating. Those kids are going to have to put their phones in their pockets. Those couples are going to have to put their phones in their pockets. They're going to have to use the trainers like Matt's using. They're going to have to hold hands with one another. They're going to bump into one another. They're going to go out and they're going to go to that amazing fireplace that's out at the end of that loop that you can only ice skate to. This is going to be an incredible community gathering place year-round and an asset, and it is incredibly exciting to say that we were a part of making a 100-year vision a reality for the people of the City of Holland. And as Mr. Corbin said, 83% of the cost of this came from the public, not from tax dollars, but from people who wanted to make this happen. I cannot thank staff enough for all of the incredible work that you have done to make it incredibly easy for us as council to get behind this, to support this, to be excited about this, to be confident that this is going to be an incredible place for this community. Wow, 100-year vision into reality. Matt, would you please call the roll?
Rowan,
Yes.
Shea,
Yes.
Schulteis,
Yes.
Bird,
Yes.
Raymond,
Yes.
Corbin, Soul,
Yes.
and Mayor Box.
An incredibly enthusiastic and excited yes.
That motion passes.
Thank you, Matt. Wonderful work. Congratulations. Next item on the agenda, communications from the city manager. Mr. Van Beek, do you have anything to announce about an ice skating park?
Here. Thank you. We're really excited, and we're probably breathing deep now because now the next phase of our 5 years of work really gets going, and we're excited. I do see there was a slide in between the last one and this one, but yeah, we did have an idea maybe that you would get behind this. So, community, please join us for an ice park groundbreaking at Window on the Waterfront on Tuesday, April 23 at 3 o'clock. We will have some light refreshments. And here's what I'll say about this. The groundbreaking, we're going to have a party when we have the ribbon cutting. We, quite frankly, and I'm just going to say it this way because it is, Frank is advanced in his years as he is advanced in his wisdom and his kindness to others. we didn't want to even take a chance of not celebrating Frank and celebrating with Frank. So we wanted to make sure that we did a groundbreaking ceremony to really celebrate with him. So please let people know. We've secured to make sure that we thank those that particularly have been involved with this are going to be able to be there, but everyone is welcome to celebrate with us again Tuesday, April 23 at 3 o'clock. Beyond that, yes, it is communications from the city manager. I can't beat that, so the only things that I'll say is next week, March 27, I do think that I heard that there is going to be one absence, which is perfectly fine. We are still looking for a time where we can get all 9 of you together. You'll recall that you did the Colby assessment, which we want to go through with you. HR Director Jennifer Orm is specially trained in that, but we're going to do that when we make sure we have all 9 of you together. So we will have a study session next week, but Colby will not be on the agenda at that point. The following week, the first week in April, is historically that spring break week, and we know that a lot of people are gone and we have absences, so we do not have any meetings that week. But then the following week, we kind of make up for it. Not only on April 10 will we have a regular council meeting, but we also then have the first of budget review sessions on April 10 and April 11. But I am going to ask, and then ask you also to hopefully hold that night, on Monday, April 8. Still time to be determined, but I'm thinking that it would be kind of our normal, maybe 5:30, maybe 6 o'clock meeting time. We're hoping that at least we can get a majority of you together. There are 2 items that we're working through that really would require a joint meeting with our Holland Board of Public Works Board. That is their regular meeting time. So it wouldn't be action items, but it's really about a sale of property. And then it's also about various agreements that we think would be prepared for that night for development of LG Energy Solutions. Again, what that night would be, so please hold it in your calendar if able. There wouldn't be any formal action taken that night by council, but it's just a time where we'd go into closed session, have some conversations, and then potentially be in a position to put items on your April 10 meeting for later that week. So if you could please hold that date and maybe communicate with me, particularly if you're not able to make it, but please for right now, if you could hold that date, that'd be great. And I think that's all I have. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Next item, 14, appointments and communications from the mayor. I just have a couple of things tonight. One, big thank you to the community. Saturday was an incredible St. Patrick's Day parade. Also earlier in the morning, I had the opportunity to announce the St. Patty's Day Leprechaun Chase and Wee Chase. It was a little chilly, but not nearly as chilly as it has been in previous years. Last year, it was a complete whiteout at the road race where we actually had to speak into the microphone to have the runners know where the finish line was because they couldn't see it from a block away. But great turnout, both in terms of people out in the parade celebrating whether you're 100% Irish or not Irish at all. Everybody got to be Irish for the day and have a great time in downtown Holland. Also, big thank you for our Holland firefighters and surrounding firefighters. As was reported in the news, there was a house fire over the weekend. It was actually just right around the corner from my house. Total loss, family all was lucky enough to be able to get out at 4:30 in the morning with nothing but their cell phones. There has been an incredible our firefighters did an amazing job protecting surrounding properties. Unfortunately, the house that burned was a total loss as well as their motorhome. But all of the other houses, we've looked closely, all of the other houses surrounding look like there's no damage at all. And a big thank you to the community as well, because there has been an incredible outpouring of support from this community. And that's exactly what Holland is about. When there are people in need, we come together. Not only does the city do a great job in providing the services that we all expect, but also it's my understanding that the The city was able to provide some gift cards. I think that there's a fund that's used there to be able to support, donated fund. So those aren't tax dollars, but people make donations to the city to be able to help support that, and then the city turns around and makes sure that those funds get where they need to go. And that's a huge help for people who have lost literally everything. All of their vehicles, their clothing, every single item, literally the clothes on their back and a cell phone is all they came out with. So thank you for that. And then I do have one appointment this evening. I would ask that the council approve the appointment of Kyle Engbers to the Holland Board of Public Works Board for a term to expire June 30, 2027, and to accept the resignation of Beth Snyder from the Holland Board of Public Works Board effective March 19, 2024, and I would be looking for a motion in that regard.
So moved.
Moved by Shay. Is there support? Support. Support by Sol. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next item on the agenda, item 15, appointments, motions, and communications from council members. Mr. Corbin, I believe you have something.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. It is recommended the City Council accept the appointment of Abram Gonzalez to the Teen Advisory Council, term to expire March 19th, 2026.
What is the pleasure of council in regard to that recommendation?
Move to approve.
Moved by Rowan. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Raymond. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Any other motions, communications from council members? Seeing none, there is just one more motion I would entertain at this moment.
Motion to adjourn.
Moved by Rowan. Is there support? Support by Byrd. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you all. Have a good